let's get started with really a question around what you guys actually do, how you would describe your jobs. Sokwoo Rhee as well as Tom Rivers. Sokwoo, why don't you start? What is it that you actually do?
Yeah, Lisa, I think you hit the head of a nail. Innovation, the word innovation, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but it changed. It was 50 years, 60 years ago, there was a bright scientist who worked on something in the lab for 10 years and come with a new product, and boom, it changed the world. That still happens sometimes, but the world has become more collaborative. That's the word I use. So in LG Electronics, they created this innovation center last year. We were only a year and a half old. And our mission is to come up with the new businesses that LG is not in today, okay? Using the means called outside in. So we primarily work with the startups and outside the companies and bring their insights, bring their ideas together with the LG and co-create the business. That's how we approach this, this world.
Tom?
Yeah, great. Work for HARMAN, and Samsung is our parent company. And when I say I work for HARMAN, most people go to HARMAN Kardon, which is sort of half right. HARMAN Kardon is one of our audio brands. So at HARMAN, we have 3 businesses. The largest one is Automotive, which I'll be talking about that. The second part is the brands that we own. So you're probably familiar with JBL, HARMAN Kardon, Infinity, and then some premium brands, including AKG, Mark Levinson, et cetera. And we partner with other audio brands like Bowers & Wilkins and Bang & Olufsen. So that's another significant business. So if you wear headphones, portable speakers, professional sound systems, or in the car, that's the audio brands. And the last piece is digital transformation solutions, which is what we call LifeWare, which is changing the digital experience from analog.
Okay, so when I think about innovating and kind of what you both do, you're both at the cross sections of using crowdsourced data and different nodes of information to understand what people want. So how do you go about even beginning to understand what data to collect to begin parsing out what people may want that they don't have yet, Tom?
Yeah. Process, it's a good process question, and it's never really the easiest answer, but first looking at industry trends. So I'll talk mostly about automotive in this discussion. In the automotive space, there's an acronym called CASE, which is consumerization, autonomy, shared riding experiences, and electrification. So in a macro view, we always are looking at the big trends. We then ingest that internally, and we created in 2018 a project which is ongoing called Project MOVE, which stands for Mind-Blowing One Vehicle Experience.
Very technical. Carry on.
But within that, we've done a deep dive, it started in 2018, on this industry trends and unpacking what consumers' unmet needs are in their vehicle. And as an example, one of those is that they want the car to be a third living space. Now, you may say, what's the second living space? Probably. The first living space is your home. The second living space is your outdoor living area. We've seen an expansion of homes and even going beyond that, tiny homes, et cetera. And the third one that we uncovered was that they want their car to be, from the consumerization perspective, bringing those experiences that are outside the car, inside the car. So that, because going from point A to point B can be pretty boring. Part of that innovation process, we unpacked this notion, and I heard it earlier in some of the discussions around going from analog to a digital experience. And we've coined the phrase in an industry now called EPM, or experiences per mile. So going from RPMs in the car, so revolutions per minute, to EPMs, which are experiences per mile. And from that, last part of innovation is we created at HARMAN the EPM Advisory Council. And many of you probably are on it. LG is on it, Salesforce is on it, the Weather Channel is on it, SAP, and 5 other automotive companies. So just giving you the broad view of how trends create now this advisory council that is, as you said, crowdsourcing other ideas to drive experiences in the car. And I'll come back later to explain more of that.
Okay, so Sokwoo, before we get into what makes a mind-blowing experience or that counts as experience per revolution, I'm just wondering from your perspective, what data you look at, what types of solutions you're looking to really achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my case, our center's mission is create something from nothing. So that's basically what it is, because we are supposed to work, and we are working on digital health, for example, energy and metaverse. And none of those sectors, LG Electronics has a footprint as of today. So that is my mission. To do it, the data we collect is extremely difficult to even define because we don't even know what field we're going to be. So the way we work with it is, instead of us trying to collect the data, we work with the startups. We work with a large number of startups. So the way you said, what data we collect startups, put it that way. And then the way we do that is we open up an open solicitation. We call it Grand Challenge Program. And then we basically say, hey, LG is interested in so many different things, but you guys are the experts. Please bring your suggestions, ideas, how you're going to work with LG instead of we tell you how we want to work with you. So last year, we opened the first Grand Challenge Program. We received 1,300 proposals from startups, and we picked top 10. And once we pick top 10, we make investments, and they will literally create a business unit to co-create business with those startups. Because we are not the experts, startups are experts, and they can tell us better. So that's what you meant, if it is much about by collecting data. That's how we collect data.
Okay, before we get into the experiences per minute, et cetera, Sokwoo, I just want to follow up on one thing, because you are an expert in the Internet of Things. And this concept of understanding the collective wisdom in a crowdsourced venue. How do you use those kinds of databases, what we do on the internet, how we experience life? How do you sort of access that to really feed into what you do?
So you use the word Internet of Things. So we collect a lot of data from the devices and appliances that we sell. But at the same time, that data, unless we know exactly what to look for, the data is not very valuable. Information extracted out of data is valuable. So in that sense, what data, we can collect any data, but I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but the philosophy is that you need to really figure out what you are looking for from the data. And same with when you're working with all these solicitations and stuff too. I mean, you have a lot of data points you can collect, but then you gotta first understand what you're looking for.
So, and there's a lot of questions within that. Before that, Tom, from your perspective, how do you understand what someone's experience of their car is like, what someone's experience of what they hear is like, and what they might prefer to see more of?
Yeah, great question. So part of this EPM, Experience Per Mile Advisory Council, was set up to have two components. One is to define what those experiences would look like, and the second one is to how do we measure them. So we did an exploratory research, and we created the industry's first EPM, or Experience Per Mile, index scoring. Now, that's all crowdsourced from every time you go. An example, there's 4 types of driving experiences. There's commuting, right? There's sort of long-haul family vacations. There's sort of going from driving your kids to school and running errands and so forth. And every time you have those experiences, you're going to be rating your car. So something would come up on the dash, you'd be clicking on that rating experience. That's the index that we created will be launched probably in the next year, and that's why we created this EPM Advisory Council with 33 companies that are all contributing to that. So we're going to be able to collect real-time data. Now, where this is going from a consumer perspective is you can then see on car A, B, and C the rating index score. You'd be able to pick as a consumer, I would like that car because it delivers that type of an experience for me. Now, behind the scenes at HARMAN, just a little double click on what we're doing to drive that, some of these spaces that we've created to drive those experiences, as an example, we created a product called ReadyCare. ReadyCare is able to monitor your focus while you're driving. Are your eyes looking straight ahead? Are you concentrating? And we can also track biometric behavior. that then drives consumer experiences to be more safe, et cetera. So we know if you're paying attention. I think we've all driven, 5 miles without remembering what 5 miles we just did, or half mile, never. We can now actually determine if you really are paying attention, and
Yay.
we can actually change that experience in the car.
I was just thinking that, if you have to rate your experience and your kids have been complaining in the back seat, it's like negative, 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 how you strip it out. But you answered that with the control group.
Yeah.
Sokwoo, from your perspective, you talk about all the data that you have. That's not the problem. It's really asking the questions, figuring out what to figure out, how to parse the noise from the signal, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how much this is an algorithmically kind of driven searching for something versus going back to that room with somebody sitting there with a piece of paper and a pencil, trying to scratch out something interesting.
So that is actually a good question. So out of the 1,300 proposals, first, you need to figure out, you need to be able to say that, okay, am I looking for a company that's going to work with us in the sector that we want to work with us? That's the first thing. And second thing is it a company that has a capacity or technology to work with us? And third thing is, are they willing to work with us? Are they in the right sector to build business together? Now, with 1,300, we were able to do that manually. Now, this year, in the second challenge, we received over 2,200 proposals. It's a data points, okay? 22 startups all over the world. Now, it suddenly became almost impossible for us to do that manually. So we had to create some kind of automated mechanism to evaluate them, at least on the get-go. And the first is so, but the principle's the same. Is it the partner in the right place, right sector that we want to work with? Are they willing to work with us? What kind of business they want to create it? And then do they have a capacity and technology to do that with us? So you have to first define what you're looking for, and then you can automate it at that point. So that's probably the best answer I can give right now.
And Tom, from your perspective, when you talk about signal from the noise, somebody might be driving and say, I'd be really happy right now if a Slurpee straw came down and I could have some Slurpee, but that wouldn't necessarily be an experience with staying power. So how do you determine what's going to be a good experience in 5 years versus now?
Yeah, great question. Again, part of the innovation process, crowdsourcing, or this EPM Advisory Council, all the ideas are coming to the table. And as Harman, we have to figure out, well, what technology is going to drive that experience? So an example of sort of future-proofing is the notion that, like our mobile device, we either get an operating system update. I just got the latest 16. But your car is much different. It has a brain inside of it called this head unit. We are actually going to be turning the car into basically a software-enabled vehicle where you can change the hardware out or the brain out in the car, so to make it future-proof. What's behind that, though, is you can then change the entire experience in the car by putting new hardware in it, coupled with software. So said differently is that your car can have a new life, a completely new experience, and it's future-proofed that way. We are selling this to automotive companies right now on their future plans, because they're building cars that are 4 years out right now. So we have to be that much further in advance. At Harman, though, what's happening in the automotive industry, it's going through a huge transformation between EV vehicles and ICE vehicles, or internal combustion. OEMs are looking, or auto companies are looking for ways of getting rid of costs, simplification, et cetera. So as a tier one supplier, we're actually moving our business model to not just be engineering for OEMs, but creating products that they just plug in. So it's a completely different business model that we're driving. We call this consumer experience automotive grade. So at the core of what we're doing is innovating these experiences, driving business and change for the automotive companies is our mission. And with our parent company, Samsung, they providing us quite a bit of technologies to advance that.
Are you guys rivals, by the way?
Well, they sit on the council, so he has a free.
If I want to add one more, so I think one of the interesting questions: how do you figure out what is meaningful in the data? How do you figure out what to extract out of the data? So one of the interesting things is when you have thousands of data points from different startups all over the world, trends emerge, and we can see it. And when you analyze those startups, then we can see a certain overlap of interesting emerging technologies, and seems like that's where a lot of startups are investing their time and money. Give an example. We do digital health, and we also do metaverse. What we realized last year is a lot of startups are actually, a lot of investors are putting money into the intersection between the digital health and metaverse. And that was something we didn't expect before we actually look at the data. But once you look at it and start analyzing, you see this interest emerge, and that could potentially be something we want to focus on too.
Can you give us an example, Sokwoo? I realize you're only a year and a half old, so it's hard to do this, but can you give us something sort of concrete, the sort of concept of something, of a path forward that you guys see and have seen through this intersection of the different sectors and the data there?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I just mentioned, for example, digital health is this is a really broad sector. But when you see the emergence of metaverse and, for example, physical therapy, and you don't have to go to the therapy, the place to do it. Sometimes you can do it on metaverse. I mean, it's a musculoskeleton therapy that you follow what's on the screen, and it's FDA approved. Actually, it gives you how to move your body and get the healing, basically. And that is a very interesting trend that's coming up. ESG, we call it ESG in general, but sustainability and plus sustainability with a carbon capture, that is a lot of money is being invested into the sector. So I can tell you those two sectors right now seems to be one that is, even with the economic downturn, and we talk about a lot of different things, still pretty strong.
How do you weigh, and Tom, this I know is directly applicable to you, giving your information to enough people to get feedback and understand whether it's going to be successful versus the fact that other people are going to want to do the same thing and compete with you?
Yeah, but part of that product innovation process and not just only doing engineering, but productizing these experiences so an automotive company can just actually plug it in. We have in our stage gate process consumer feedback all along the way. Right down to the ideation, when they're defining the product, willingness to pay, how much they're willing to pay. So when we then take that data with the product, with the consumer feedback, with the product to our automotive customers, we're giving them the full package. And they're very willing to buy once they see the consumer data. Now, it might differ from a Mercedes buyer to maybe a Ford Focus buyer, but our premises is still there that those consumers have given us that feedback, and we're sharing that directly to the automotive companies. And we're leading in this space. Our entire business is changing, and we're seeing a really high receptivity from automotive customers. Again, all automotive customers are our customers. There isn't one that we don't do business with, but they like our innovative approach and our consumer experience lens and all the data we're getting back on that.
So, great question. So, how do you draw a line between pre-competitive collaboration and competitive collaboration? So, it actually comes down to philosophy. So, our philosophy in LG Nova is the best innovation comes out of collaboration. That's it. That's why we do this. So what that means is, yes, we share a lot of information with our partners, and sometimes it's public information. We just make them public. But at the end of the day, we believe through this kind of sort of like co-creation process, 1 + 1 can come out with something more than 2. And that's what they're shooting for. So you are asking, okay, how do you share the data, still keep the competitive advantage? Yes, there will be co-creative business that we're going to own, but until that point, the data is shared and more partners come to us, more partners want to work with us. That's the sign that our business was going to come out of it, we're going to be more successful. So this sort of philosophical question, I think, is a little weird to talk about philosophy here, but that's what it is.
Well, it's actually deeply philosophical. We didn't get into data privacy, and then we didn't get into a whole host of things. We only have about 30 seconds left. I'm just wondering, do you feel like the time cycle, the timeline for innovations has shortened dramatically just simply because of how quickly everything's accelerating? And we only have about 30 seconds.
Answers yes to that. The crowdsourcing, the collaboration, the consortium idea, it really advances things much quicker. And I think at the pace of what consumers want, I think in the automotive business tend to be slower, but we're seeing it speed up, and we've adapted to that speed through collaboration. Yeah.
The answer is yes, but speed itself doesn't really solve the problem. What solves the problem is the quality of the innovation that comes out of it. And the world has changed that you can get better quality by working with others. That's our approach. Yeah.
So there's a red light flashing telling me stop right now. Sokwoo Rhee, as well as Tom Rivers, both of you, thank you so much. Tremendously interesting. Thank you.